QA and group discussion, what we're going to be learning is basically Arjun asks Krishna about the characteristics of material and spiritual progress. You know, there are two paths in life. We can choose either material or spiritual. So he's asking what are the characteristics of a person who's on path A and a person who's on the path B. And then finally, what is the outcome of someone who's on either of these paths? Then the second is he asks what's the goal of a successful transcendentalist. Transcendentalist and spiritualist is one and the same thing, they're synonymous. So what's that goal? What is the person who's on the spiritual path? What is he working towards? What is he going towards? And then all doubts, why Krishna alone can clear all doubts. Arjun has so many questions throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, in fact, is the perfect QA session ever recorded. Perfect. Why is that so? Literally, everything related to mankind, you know, what our purpose is, how to live, what to eat. So everything is there in Bhagavad Gita. So there is no issue that mankind has confronted, is confronting, or will confront that Bhagavad Gita doesn't have the answers to. So Arjun, in a role of a student, asks these questions, and Krishna, as a role of the teacher, answers it. Now, there are doubts we have, and there are people whom we approach to. It could be someone who's on the material path, it could be someone on the spiritual path. But a materialist cannot answer what is the answers, the questions related to any spirituality. They can concoct something, of course, but it's not a clear answer. However, a spiritualist can answer issues and questions related to materialism. So we'll understand out of the spiritualist, Krishna is the only person who can clear all doubts, and those who are on the path of spirituality, how they are empowered, that same ability of Krishna of knowing, which helps you clear doubts. So these are the three main items that we will cover. And then, of course, we have our question answers and the group discussion. And finally, I owe my humble obeisances to His Grace Gauranga Priya Prabhu from the ISKCON Chowpatty, Bombay temple. He has this wonderful ready reckoner analysis of a very thorough analysis of Bhagavad Gita. I've used that to prepare for today's program. So let us get into the text. I'll now link to Veda Base. Kachinobhya vibratash chinnam brahmiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimuddho brahmanapati. Kachit, whether, no, not, ubhaya, both, vibrastaha, deviated from, chinna, tone, abram, cloud, eva, like, nashyati, perishes, apratishtaha, without any position, mahabaho, O mighty armed Krishna, vimuddaha, bewildered, brahmanaha, transcendence, pati, on the path. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? There are two ways. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. There are two ways to progress. Those who are materialists have no interest in transcendence. Therefore, they are more interested in material advancement by economic development or in promotion to higher planets by appropriate work. When one takes to the path of transcendence, one has to cease all material activities and sacrifice all forms of so-called material happiness. If the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. He has no position. He is like a ribbon cloud. A cloud in the sky sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if one cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. The Brahmanapati is the path of transcendental realization through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Lord Shri Krishna is the fullest manifestation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore, one who is surrendered to the Supreme Person is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life through Brahman and Paramatma realization takes many, many births. Bhunam Janmanam Ante. Therefore, the supermost path of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga, the direct method. Etan mismasyan samshayam Krishna chetum arhashi asheshatah tvad anyah samshayasya shamsayasya chetana hi upaptyate. Synonyms. Etat, this is, me, samshayam, doubt. Krishna, O Krishna, chetum, to dispel. Arhasi, you are requested. Asheshataha, completely. Tvat, that you. Anyaha, other. Shamshayasya, of the doubt. Asya, this. Cheta, remover. Na, never. He, certainly. Upapadde, is to be found. Translation. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Krishna is the perfect knower of the past, present, and future. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said that all living entities existed individually in the past, they exist now in the present, and they continue to retain individual identity in the future, even after liberation from the material entanglement. So, he has already cleared up the question of the future of the individual living entity. Now, Krishna wants to know of the future of the unsuccessful transcendentalist.
I ask
No
you
one,
to dispel it completely, but for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this.
Hare Krishna, some Mataji has her speaker on. If you could please mute it. Thank you. Now, Arjuna wants to know of the future of unsuccessful transcendentalists. No one is equal to or above Krishna, and certainly the so-called great sages and philosophers who are at the mercy of material nature cannot equal him. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts because he knows the past, present, and future perfectly, but no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. I'll read this again. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts because he knows the past, present, and future, but no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. Om Agnyantimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raguna Dhanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Vrishna Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedant Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Jnanadeva. So let's understand the first point related to Arjuna's question, material and spiritual progress. What's the characteristics and outcomes? So first, let's understand that every human being, doesn't matter who, every human being has what is called certain needs. All of us have needs, okay? And then there are certain wants. Want is nothing but a mechanism of fulfilling an underlying need. But here are the basic needs that we have. It's like a pyramid. So at the bottom level is the physiological need, which is, of course, air, food, and water. Correct? So if you see, there are two categories. There is the growth need on the top, and there is the deficiency need. Now, once the base needs are taken care of, then that's where the growth starts happening. So you have the basic needs of the food, air, water, self-explanatory. Then safety needs, safety from the weather, safety from wild animals, from hostile forces. So you need food, you need a house, a shelter, you need clothing that we wear. Clothing that we wear is because since man became civilized, you dress up, you cover your privates, it protects you from the weather. So that is the safety needs. Then once that is taken care of, then you have belonging and love needs. Every human being wants to love and be loved. Actually, every living entity wants to love and be loved. Once that's taken care of, you have the esteem needs that, oh, maine kuch hasil kiya hai, people should respect me, I need some status in society, whatever it be the case. Then there is cognitive needs. I start inquiring, I start finding out. Then the aesthetic needs. Then it comes to self-actualization. And finally, on top, we have the transcendence. We're all familiar with this term, transcendence, transcendentality, the spirituality. So this is the motivation. And when the lower ones are taken care of, you finally culminate into the spirituality. As they say, people don't understand who God is on an empty stomach. So the base needs get taken care of, and then you have the transcendence. The beauty is someone who takes to bhakti, a type of spirituality, automatically everything else is taken care of fully. So this is how human beings are, correct, in terms of progress. This is natural. This is Maslow. Abraham Maslow was a psychologist who had put this forward. Now, if we see the progress path, human beings, he takes the material, which is the basal need. So you see here the bottom one, the basal, it's at the basic level, mainly interested in economic development. I'll do something, I get something, fruitive activities. That's the path that the person progresses on. And what is his goal? He wants to get promoted to better living condition. All of us are trying to improve our status quo. All of us, correct? Think of the time when you were a child, you became a young adult, you finished your studies, you took up a job. When you were a job, either as an intern or just a fresher or trainee, what was your goal? To remain a trainee? No, you wanted to progress. Why you wanted to progress? Because if you were traveling, let's say, for example, by public transportation to go to your place of work, then you would say, oh, I need to buy a scooter or a motorcycle. After the motorcycle, you want a better promotion, more money, bigger house, better things. So this is what the goal is: promotion to better living conditions. The other path is the spiritual path, transcendental. What it requires for spiritual, the activities a person does is he seizes all material activities and things from which materialism gives you pleasure. Now he starts looking for something else. So you can see here the deficiency need and the growth need. He starts going into areas, but to be on the spiritual path, you have to, they're mutually exclusive, spiritual and material. So he has to seize these material activities and things that give him this pleasure. And what is the goal? The goal is, outcome is, he has self-realization. Who he is, he also understands Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. This Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan is what the highest spiritualist, which is the Bhakti Yogi, he and she understand it. A person who goes to Brahman realization only understands Brahman realization. Paramatma only understands Paramatma realization. But the Bhagavan realization, Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, includes all three and the realization of the self. So this is the characteristics and the outcomes of being on either of these two paths. So if you see the spiritualist, what are the results? It's a permanent. Whatever you do in spirituality is permanent. It is fully satisfying. We all have the experience in the material path. The pleasure is temporary. And back in the cycle, the rat race. When you get a promotion at your job, we are a little bit happy. Means, yeah, I got it. But that won't last for the entire year. Then you're working towards the next promotion in a certain period of time. So that satisfaction that we get with achievement in spirituality is literally eternal. It is not bound by time. Not only when we are in this particular body, it continues. It is attached to who we are, the spirit soul. And of course, it is proper use of time and effort. Why? Because we are the jiva, we are not the body. We are the spirit soul. The spirit soul is eternal. We are doing things which are related to eternality. So naturally, the time that we have here in this particular body is properly utilized. Then we have the material results. It is the exact opposite. You've heard this saying, this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And all of us have this experience. In materialism, everything and everyone will eventually disappoint you. Prabhupada said, in the fruits of happiness, material happiness, are seeds of sorrow. It's only a matter of time before it fructifies. Material solution to problems are just gateways to new problems. So we can see this is all temporary dissatisfaction. And of course, we are looking, materialism is all related to the body. The body is temporary. So we're chasing things which has no lasting value. So naturally, it's a waste of time and effort. Okay. Now, what is the goal of a successful transcendentalist? What are they after? Let us understand that. So we have two categories of transcendentalist. One is a failed transcendentalist. He's neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. Why? Because the transcendentalist has cut off everything related to materialism. And he's going after a higher purpose. And then when he fails, having cut off all ties, he's just like a boat adrift at sea. Neither can he go back to materialism, nor can he continue with this path. And the example Prabhupada gives is of a cloud. You see in the sky, sometimes there are clouds. A small cloud, okay, may leave another cloud to go and join a bigger cloud. But if it can't connect to that bigger cloud, it just drifts away. It's neither with the small cloud nor with the big cloud. And what happens? The cloud drifts away. It's just that time disperses it completely. So this is the situation of a failed transcendentalist. In the previous verses, we learned why someone on the spiritual path fails. There are many reasons. But at the core is we have all these anarthas, all these unnecessary wants and desires and needs and all that. Spirituality is a gradual process. But in that gradual process, we need to be very attentive and careful, or it's very easy to slip, and it doesn't matter how much time and what level of realization that we have. And to make sure we don't slip, there are certain processes which the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastras have recommended. Vaishnav Sangha, remain in the company of those on the same path. Humility. Don't indulge in blaspheming, especially the devotees. Do a lot of seva, chanting, So when we are diligently doing this, not as a part-time, then you are assured of success. And then you have the successful transcendentalist who's properly situated. Why is he properly situated? Because he's aligned with who he is. His thoughts, words, and deeds is properly aligned with who he really is. Other is like a shadow, and this is actual. The shadow, you can only see the shadow of a man and you can make out what form it is, correct? Oh, this is a man, this is a dog, by looking at the shadow. But you do not know the personality of that man by looking at a shadow. So when we are trying to make progress in life, if you take one option, materialism, and you take the other option, which is spirituality, it is self-evident that spirituality makes more sense. You actually connect with that person, not with that shadow. Shadow can become crooked if it is in water, and will behave and do everything based on that crookedness of the shadow. But when you meet the man face to face, that person, he or she will not become crooked. So a successful transcendentalist is properly situated. Now, to be a successful transcendentalist, so this is that cloud that Prabhupada had given the example of. Okay, a transcendentalist is called Brahmanapati. The first realization he has is, I am the spirit soul. That's the first. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. Sing Nitai Gora Haribol. Aham Brahmasmi. Then, once you know you're the spirit soul, you understand that you're the part and parcel of the absolute truth. And the absolute truth has 3 levels of progressive realization. At the base level is the Brahman, the all-pervading aspect. Then you have the Paramatma, which is the localized aspect. And then finally, the source of everything, which is Bhagwan realization, the Supreme Person. Correct? When you get this, you surrender. When you have this realization, you surrender to Krishna, who is the fullest manifestation of the absolute truth. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Dharma has 2 connotations. Dharma has an essence. Dharma 3 is a duty. And also it means the religious aspect. Most people commonly understand dharma to be religious. But what Krishna says, no matter what, just give up everything, just surrender to me. That's the path of perfection. Become my devotee. Prabhupada has stated the perfected state of a human being is a devotee. So surrender to Krishna. And how you do that? Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is that process which helps us progress on the path of spirituality and attain perfection. As long as we are careful, as long as we are diligent, as long as we are serious, doesn't matter, we can make mistakes. My Guru Maharaj told me, I'd asked him something about, question about mistakes committed, offenses committed. What should be the proper way of rectifying it? He gave a very nice instruction. He says, don't beat yourself over it. Don't get into a guilt trip. Learn from it where you went wrong. Don't repeat it. And then, of course, if it is a person with whom you have committed the offense, genuinely ask for forgiveness. So when someone forgives us for something that we've done, it becomes incumbent on us not to repeat it. Otherwise, it's no use of learning. What has happened? Again, you'll keep doing the same thing. Like they say, the dog's tail is always curved. Even in 10 years, you put it in the steel tube, you remove the tube, it will remain curved. So these mistakes, if we commit a mistake, we genuinely feel regret about it, we ask for forgiveness, then that it becomes our responsibility to see we don't. Otherwise, we really didn't mean we are sorry, we didn't really regret it. So Bhakti Yoga, now all these things, nitty-gritties, right from your womb, from the child when it's in the womb, that Garbhodaya Samskar, from that point, right from womb to tomb, when we leave the body, there are these sanskaras, these impressions that we learn and we practice. And that puts us on the path to perfection. There are different paths, even in transcendentalists, someone on the Brahman, someone with Paramatma, someone with Bhagwan. But the Bhagwan realization, as we discussed earlier, someone on that path, a Bhakta, Bhakti Yoga, that person is guaranteed success. So this is where Krishna takes charge of us. This is an ocean of faults, other than our own. But in Bhakti Yoga, Krishna personally takes charge of you. Jako mare saiya, jako rakhe saiya maar sake na koi. Why Krishna alone can clear all doubts? He knows the past, present, and future. We know this in Bhagavad Gita, right? When Arjuna was fully bewildered. He's saying, never was a time when you, me, all these kings, all these soldiers didn't exist or won't exist. Arjuna thought that he's going to be killing them. He knows the past, present, future. No one is equal to or above Krishna. That's the definition of God. No one is equal to or above him. Brahma Samhita's opening, Ishwar Parama Krishna Satchitanand Vigra. Anadir Adir. Without a beginning, he is the original, the causeless cause of all causes, Sarva Karana Karanam. Now, if Krishna knows past, present, future, there can be a question. Oh, there may be somebody else who knows that, or who may know more than him. No, but the Shastras, Gurus, Sadhus, they validate this. This is Lord Brahma's prayer. Brahma is the first created being. All of us follow way later. So, no one is equal to or above of Krishna. That's the second point to note, and why he alone can clear all doubt. And Krishna knows everything. That's one of his opulences and one of his characteristics which makes him God. He has 6 opulences. You know that, correct? Knowledge, wealth, beauty, fame, renunciation. Knowledge is one of them. Strength, bala. So that knowledge about Krishna, everything is absolute. We have partial or relative. You look at material science. Material science can only say this is the truth as of now, what we know so far. In a certain decade or time or 100 years or whatever, something new comes up, which completely erases whatever we knew at that point in time. But that is called relative, and that's called imperfect, that's called incomplete. Because everything, our own capabilities, all these material capabilities have those characteristics: faulty, imperfect, incomplete, relative. But Krishna knows everything because he's absolute. It's one of his opulences, it's one of his characteristics. He knows everything, but no one knows Krishna. I studied in a Catholic school and I had asked this question. Spirituality always interested me. I didn't know what is what. Few people along my journey on spiritualism, prior to coming to ISKCON, set the path. They make a channel and water flows that way. So Father Pabrega, there's this question. He mentioned in class, God is infinite. We are infinitesimal. How can the infinitesimal ever understand the infinite? It doesn't make sense. Something which is minuscule, how can it ever comprehend? And you know that frog in the well, and another frog goes to the Atlantic Pacific Ocean. How big is it? How big is it? Is it 5 times the size? Is it 10 times? Is it 100 times? Is it 10,000 times the size of this well? There's no concept of that largeness and vastness. So when we try to understand Krishna with our mind and intelligence, it's impossible because this is limited and he's unlimited. Then years later, another pastor, one lady, she gave this question. She gave an answer to this question. She's saying, yes, it's impossible for the infinitesimal to understand the infinite. However, if the infinite wants, he can make himself known to the infinitesimal. And that's the beauty, if you look at it. Krishna has no limitations. We have limitations. You know the story of that cobbler and the story of the Brahmana asking Narad, what you're doing? Oh, I'm going to the Vaikuntha to meet Narayana. So after he comes back, he's saying, what was Narayana doing? So he tells him, oh, Narayana was pulling an elephant through the eye of a needle. The Brahmana was so learned in scriptures and everything else. What nonsense. How can anyone pull an elephant through the eye of a needle? Then he went to this cobbler who's not at all educated in uh, Shastras. He doesn't know all the shlokas, verses, rituals, what to do, what not to do. He does his job happily, has a lot of love for Narayan. When Narad, he says, oh, what was my Lord doing? And Narad Muni tells him that this is what he was doing, pulling an elephant through the eye of a needle. He had tears in his eyes and he was so ecstatic. He says, oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Just see how great my Lord is. So Narad Muni asked him, don't you think it is kind of baffling? Elephant through the eye of a needle. He's saying, my Lord can do anything. There's no restrictions on him. If in such a small seeds were fallen, he was sitting under an oak tree, a banyan tree, oak tree, whatever tree, some tree. If these seeds, correct, contains this, such a small seed contains within it this giant, then we can see this over here. See, that is level of realization. Ananta Sesha, he has countless hoods. He's been singing the glories of Krishna since time immemorial, just been singing. He can't still conclude it. Just when he thinks he has reached, again, there is something more, something more. So this is all put together, we can understand. There's nothing that Krishna knows, doesn't know. Okay? So, Prabhu's, Mataji's, I'll bring this to a close. This is one of my favorite verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Brahmande Brahmite Kona Bhagyavana Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhaktilata Picha. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we all have karma, action, reaction. It doesn't end when the body ends, it accompanies the mind, intelligence, ego, and the soul. That's the vehicle on which the soul travels to the next body. And we're going everywhere. Upper planets, lower planets, depending on my karma, getting different forms, animal form, human form, demigod form. We are moving up and down, bouncing like a yo-yo. And then out of these millions of wandering jivas, it is with great fortune you get in contact with the spiritual master. By the mercy of Krishna, you get a guru, and by the mercy of a guru, you get Krishna. Krishna manifests in many methods. He comes as Swayam Bhagwan himself, he himself. He comes as he himself in the material world 500 odd years back as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then you all know the Dasha avatars. Periodically in each yuga cycle he comes. Satya, Treta, Dapar. You know, he comes. Scheduled appearances. He comes in the form of his deity. When you have these Pran Pratishthas, deities installed, that is Krishna himself. When we are seeing the deities, we should go with the consciousness that deities also are seeing us. It is not wood or stone or metal. It is Krishna himself. Why do you have deities? Why deity worship, which Prabhupada said is a very important path, very important process to be on the right track, to not deviate, to not fall. Why deity worship? Look at it this way. They say God is everywhere. Now, the analogy is you can look at it as your mobile signals. They have radio signals, mobile, these wireless technologies. It is everywhere. Can you see it? No, it cannot be perceived by these senses because it is above and beyond the frequency of what we can see or what we can hear and things like that. But if you want to have any connection, what you need a device. Like we have this cell phone. What does that device do? That device is capable of capturing those mobile signals, whatever it be, audio, video, text, whatever, and then in a form with which we can relate to. It presents it to us. Similarly, if I want to interact, again, I have some inputs and it sends it across through that medium, which is beyond our sensory perceptions. Now, we in a material consciousness are so thick, so gross, like we don't have much range. So Krishna in his mercy comes as the form of his deity. And that's how our bhakti, our love, we reciprocate. Love can't be done with something abstract. Love has to be something which is concrete, which is something which is tangible. And similarly, the guru is the human representation. Of course, when we make spiritual progress, then we can interact with the deities just as you and I are interacting. But till such time, there is the guru who guides us, and he is the mercy representation. Krishna has many qualities. So this is what the mercy of Krishna, we get a guru, and through the mercy of the guru, we get Krishna. Here you see a picture of a devotee taking initiation from Srila Prabhupada. Initiation is not because of our capabilities. It's not because of our effort. It is not because of, oh, we are so serious, we want to be on the spiritual path. Human beings in the material condition are impulsive. That seriousness may be there for a certain period of time. That's not why the Guru awards us initiation. He accepts us. It is that mercy, causeless mercy. Causeless mercy means it has no cause. We have no qualification. Mercy means for someone who is undeserving. So this is what it means to be on the right path, bhakti. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, everyone. If there are any questions, comments, reflections, we can go through it now. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, a wonderful
Hare
class.
Bol.
Good to see you
All
after
glories to Prabhupada.
time. Yeah. Prabhuji, I have a question. So I'm not initiated yet. So whenever you're looking for, like, if you want to become a disciple of somebody, is it like you aspire for some particular guru, or you just get that awakening sometime that, okay, this is the guru that I want to become disciple of, or is it the temple congregation that actually helps you, or how is it, Prabhuji?
Mataji, my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, had, when I was, seeking initiation. So he says, yes, I'll give you initiation, but initiation, where you take your vows, there is the fire sacrifice in front of your guru and the Vaishnavas and the deities. You make this, correct? So it's a formal ceremony. So he says that initiation, where the guru formally accepts a disciple, the disciple takes vows. He's saying that is a formality. The real initiation is when you have surrendered to the guru. When our tan man dhan, when our with our mind, with our consciousness, with our heart, we accept that you're my master. And master means not like we have masters in the office like bosses. We have authorities to whom we submit in the material world. No. This master is absolute in the sense that whatever instructions he gives us is non-negotiable. No if, and buts. So that is the first meaning of initiation. The second point related to initiation is dependent on what we call inspiration. Now, when we come in the contact of devotees, so Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita, right? There are 4 types of people who approach me. Someone who is in distress. Hey, Bhagwan, mera bhala kar. Someone who has motivated by some fruitive gain. Oh God, let me pass in the exam. My daughter should get a good husband. I should get a promotion. Some material benefit. That's the second type of a person who comes to Krishna. The third type of person who comes to Krishna is the inquisitive or the curious kind. Why is it like this? There must be something more than all this. What is the cause of all this? Whatever. And the fourth kind of person is a self-realized soul whose journey in the previous life wasn't completed. And he gets the opportunity in the next life to reconnect, continue his journey. Now, it doesn't matter whatever be the 4 types of people, the opportunity is there once you get in contact for you to further that contact. And if you further that connection, you get in the company of like-minded people. So in bhakti, when you come in the company of like-minded bhaktas, the Vaishnavas, what we call, then you listen to them, you see their behavior, what they do, how they do. You read literature, you read Prabhupada's books. It brings about an awakening. It brings about some level of cleansing of all that fog which is in our mind. And when this thing is happening, our initial purpose, whatever it be, gets into another purpose. It comes and we say, I want to do more and more. Yes, this makes sense. I want to get more involved. Then based on that seriousness or that sincerity, Krishna as Paramatma is the Chaitya Guru, what they say. Chaitya comes from awareness. That Chaitya, Krishna is aware. He knows every thought. You can't hide anything from him. So he sees our intent kitna hai. And once that intent, then Krishna says, okay, and he'll lead. So you could be listening to, say, lectures of several of initiating gurus. Several you could be listening to. But then from within, Krishna will point out. And this relation between a guru and a disciple is eternal. The guru takes birth not because of his karma. Don't mistake a guru to be flesh and bone like you and me. Yes, he has a material body, but unlike you and me, he hasn't taken birth because of his karma. He has come here for a specific purpose, to distribute that mercy, to reclaim all the jivas wandering about here and there, Brahmande Brahmite, Kona Bhagyavana Jiva. So that guru, when Krishna points out in that direction and we say yes, and then that particular person, that guru, awakens a heart by seeing him, by hearing him, by serving him. And that's where then there is the process. If you're in a temple congregation, then the temple authorities who can vouch and validate for your behavior, for your activities. And then before taking initiation, you whatever vows you take, you have to at least practice it. Not that today, this Sunday, I went meat eating makes no sense. Offering bhoga makes sense. Oh yes, 16 rounds I'll chant. We have to do it for a certain time. That is our qualificatory process. The question comes then, if mercy requires no qualification, then what are we qualifying for? And Romapad Maharaj gave this answer. He's saying mercy, Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy is like the sun. It is everywhere. Sun doesn't discriminate. Sun is everywhere. He's saying, but it is us who are hiding in the basement in a dark room. By choice, we refuse to go to get that mercy. If I want to go out in the sun, I have to at least climb those steps. I have to at least first have that intent of going out. So that is the preparatory process. And this process is such, it's not just initial, it remains with you. Even when you have made the ultimate progression, the japa that we do continues. Even the fortunate ones who have perfected and in this lifetime are going back to Godhead will be doing their kirtan sadhana. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so I'm sorry we went 3-4 minutes over time. I don't know how we are placed for time schedule. So if you have a question, Simeshwar Prabhu, or we can post it on Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Guruji, for
Hare
such a
Krishna.
wonderful class. Yeah, go ahead, Mataji. Somebody wants to say something.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I don't know if there is time for one more question. If it's not there,
Yes, please. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
okay. So yeah, Prabhuji, very wonderful and beautiful class. I actually had a question which is like very fundamental, but like kind of, it might sound very silly question, but it's mostly about, like you were talking about the material consciousness and the Krishna consciousness. So in terms of the material consciousness, like I just wanted to understand what is usually the role of the soul in our like daily activities, what we do. Like what I mean to say is, this body is made of that gross body and subtle body, right? And then there is a soul.
Yes.
And all the senses, they like, I mean, work towards, like, you know, they drive the entire thing. So for example, if there is a gulab jamun in front of me, my mind would be attracted towards that, and it is going to direct the senses to grab it and eat. But since intelligence is higher than the mind, it might say that no, it's going to increase your sugar levels, it's not good for your health.
Correct.
So but what is the role of soul in this example? Like, what does the soul do?
Mataji, we mentioned something very nice. Material conscious and spiritual conscious. 2 days back, I had taken my wife to get her second, vaccination. So we were sitting in the rickshaw. Rickshaw, incidentally, my realization, Pune, when you're sitting in that crazy traffic and in that rickshaw whizzing in and out, zigzagging between cars and trucks, you actually realize that this life that we are so attached to is like a drop of water tottering on the edge of a leaf. Anytime death can come and take you away. But that actual realization happens when you're sitting in a Pune rickshaw. So we were in this rickshaw, and you have these trucks in India, and they have some little shero shairi on the back of the truck. And usually they write बुरे नजर से देखने वाले तुम्हारा मुंह काला. Now, for you, those of you who don't understand Hindi, it says that people who look at us with evil eyes, tera muh kala means shame on you. Someone who looks at others with an evil eye, shame on you. But on this truck, I saw something very different, and I was mentioning Savita. What a lovely thought, a Vaishnav thought, a spiritual consciousness. So material consciousness is, you did this for me, I'll do this back to you. Fruitive. What he had written on the back of his truck is, बुरी नजर से देखने वाले तेरा भी भला. Meaning to say that someone who looks at me with an evil eye, I wish you well. Tera bhi bhala ho. So this is spiritual consciousness, this is material consciousness. This is spiritual consciousness, this is material consciousness. The impetus is the same, but how we handle it. Correct? So this is the first thing to understand. Now how it works. Correct? At a fundamental level, there is thinking, there is feeling, there is willing, and there is acting. This is the progressive way in which either a word comes out or we perform our actions. So first is there's the thought, like you said, gulab jamun. I think of a gulab jamun, or I get some stimuli by seeing a gulab jamun. Then I feel, this, gulab jamun, I'll put it in my mouth and it'll burst with all the sweet flavors and all that. We really live that experience having eaten a gulab jamun. That is feeling. And that feeling drives us towards willing. Yes, I want to eat the gulab jamun. Thinking, feeling, willing, and then we act. We eat the gulab jamun. Now, whether we eat it or no comes to the intelligence. So what happens is the mind, Krishna has given that example, right? You have the horses, the senses are the horses. They are the gateways to all these stimuli that come in. Then you have the reins. Intelligence is the rein. And you have the driver. Mind is the rein. And you have the driver who is the intelligence. The driver controls, right? Using the mind, he controls the senses. And top of the intelligence is the ego and then the soul. Ego is nothing but a sense of I am, the soul's feeling sense of I am. Now there are the spiritual senses and there is the material senses. So currently our soul in a material world is in a dormant state. Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj in one of his lectures has said it is in a dormant state. So those senses are kind of asleep, the spiritual senses. And right now the material senses are awake, very alert, 24/7. Now in that state, what happens in the material state is that the mind is taking care of everything. He is in control, not the intelligence. My Guru Maharaj says it is very difficult to do the right thing in a material consciousness. It's very easy to do the wrong thing. It requires a lot of discipline and tapasya and sacrifice and pain to do the right thing. In a spiritual consciousness, you'll just do the right thing. There's no question of doing the wrong thing. It is the right thing. So what you're looking at is when this is coming on, the thinking, feeling, willing, in material consciousness, end of the day, everything is driven by the soul. But the soul is kind of asleep. And they say when the cat is away, the mice are at play. So the mind is the one who is doing everything. I'm thinking of it. I start feeling it. I will it. And my intelligence is like a small little rat sitting in the corner of the room. But if with intelligence we can control the mind is very powerful. Arjun said, I can control the wind, but I can't control my mind. In our daily example, we know when we are doing japa, where all the mind goes. The mind's job is to think. All the time it is thinking about I, me, myself. How will I get more and more pleasure? So when the intelligence is that power to discriminate. So if I have diabetes and I'm still eating gulab jamun, my mind has overtaken my intelligence. But if I have diabetes and I see gulab jamun and I say no, then it is. And how to awaken the senses of the soul? When we do any spiritual activity, when we hear this word Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, when it enters here, it goes directly to the heart, the seating place of the soul, and it's like it's rousing the soul. Now, the intensity with which we listen and with which we chant, that will be the intensity with which it wakes it up. Our chanting, when you see, is kind of distracted. Some, maybe 2-3 beads, we can chant with focus. Then again, the mind runs here, mind runs there. Again, we're pulling it back. But the more focus and more attention we pay, it means with more force, we are waking the sleeping entity. And naturally, the more force you use, the faster the person will get up. Someone is in a deep slumber, like a coma. You just gently shake him. He is not going to get up. But the idea is you keep doing it, even if it is gently. Prabhupada said the purpose of chanting is to chant more, even imperfectly. Because thoda karke, the time over gradually, eventually, it will reach. So this is the process, the thought process, how it goes: thinking, feeling, willing, acting. Understand that this is the mind. Our mind is the culprit. And it is by our choice. Why? Because the soul has identified that ego, false ego they call it. It doesn't know who the soul has forgotten. He thinks I am the mind body, subtle and gross body. I am this body. Thank you, Mataji, for your question. Very nice. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Very, very beautifully and explained in detail. Just one thing is like, so that means when we do any devotional service, like offering the food to Krishna, or like any other devotion service, like as you said, chanting or Shravanam Kirtanam. So that is something driven by the intelligence, or is it coming from the soul, like those kind of...
Mataji, spiritual activities are a function of a soul. So what happens is that when I'm doing my japa, that decision to sit down and do japa, no matter what, the decision to do my rounds, whether you've taken a vow of 1 round or if you're initiated, you're doing 16 rounds, doesn't matter. That decision comes from a level of intellect. So what happens to devotees who are on the path of spirituality? It's a gradual process. It's a gradual process. It's our consciousness. Consciousness is being aware. The more I'm aware that I'm the spirit soul, the more and more I have that aham brahmasmi realization. Intellectually, I may realize it. Intellectually, I may understand it, but do I realize it? Realization comes through practice. Realization comes through practice. Practical application of knowledge leads to realization. Knowledge can be forgotten, realization can't be forgotten. You have that practical experience. You know how to ride a bike. You have ridden a bike. I can tell you how to ride a bike, but until and unless you don't sit on the seat and start pedaling, initially your handle will shake like this. Then you become steady and you can go in races also. But when you are on the bike, even after 20 years of not sitting on the bike, the moment you sit on the seat, automatically it comes. So that is not lost. But if I told you just in your mind that, this is how you ride a bike, this is balance, you turn this way, that way, brake, all that, you'll understand, barabar. But after 20 years, chances are you would have forgotten it because so many other things are cluttered in the mind. So from that realization, when we have that realization that I am the spirit soul, we have that knowledge that I am a part and parcel of Krishna. At an intellectual level, I understand it. Do I have that realization? So when I'm doing these spiritual activities, what is happening? It's that gradual awakening, what I've said. of our spiritual senses. So the five senses, the mind, intelligence, ego, as Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj has said. So that aspect of the spiritual intelligence, I want to sleep, but the spiritual intelligence says, hey, get up, japa time. I come home from work very tired. I haven't completed my rounds, and then my mind is debating, Arey, go to sleep, yeah, you can continue it tomorrow. Never mind, you did 12 rounds today, you can do 20 rounds tomorrow. All these things is what the mind is talking to us. You know, all the time there are these conversations happening in our head. But then that spiritual intelligence, depending on how we have strengthened it, how much we have woken it up, that will say, don't. Sit down and finish, no matter you're tired. Finish your round, do your best, try. And then the spiritual intelligence has controlled the mind. Otherwise, we say, believe me, there are 100 justifications we can come up with, very logical and very sensible. Oh, I'm very tired now. You know, and it is said, your body is a temple. It is not your property. You have to take care of Krishna. All what we have heard, we'll use that only. But reality is that the intelligence, which is the material intelligence, sat in the corner like a rat, and the lion, like a tiger, has said, go to sleep. And we've gone to sleep. But when we know in such instances where we choose to engage in a spiritual act, that choice, intelligence makes the choice, discrimination, yea or nay. When we choose to do a spiritual act, just look at it as being awoken. That spiritual senses have been awoken. So discipline, sincerity, sangha, practice strengthens that. So instead of it happening just little, and that's how we become aware. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. I'm part and parcel. Part and parcel means I have to serve. Part serves the whole. Devotional service is not just coming to the temple. Devotional service is not the 1.5 hour, 1 hour, 45 minutes, or whatever it takes to do your japa. Devotional service is not reading a set number of verses every day. Devotional service is not making bhoga. I mean, it is. Devotional service can also be brushing your teeth, Mataji. There is a Mataji in our congregation during Gail. She is now in tobacco congregation. Gail Mataji, Mother Gail. She gave such a beautiful realization. She says, I get up, every one of us gets up in the morning. The first thing we do is we brush our teeth. Now, brushing your teeth, if you look at it, is kind of a cleansing act, but you know, all the bacteria and the bad breath and all of the morning. And then you spit it out, wash your mouth, and then you feel a little fresh. Her consciousness is when she brushes her teeth, she says, I'm doing this for Krishna because I'm going to be chanting. And it is a clean place for him to come on my tongue. She's cleaning her mouth for Krishna so that when she's doing japa, of course, to do japa, there is no restriction. Even if you haven't washed your mouth, even if you have not taken a bath, for japa, even when you're going to answer nature's call, chanting, I mean, japa not on the beads, chanting, taking his name. But see the level of consciousness. So when that consciousness develops more and more, what happens is then this material senses diminish and our spiritual senses are awakened. Consciousness, Krishna consciousness. We become Krishna conscious of everything, not just while doing japa, or not just while seeing deities, not just while seeing a Tilak Vaishnav and doing seva with them together. We become fully conscious. Then we see even a person whom today we are saying, hey, he's karmi, hey, he's good, he's bad, he's like this, he's like that. We don't see that. You see him as part and parcel of Krishna. Everything reminds you of Krishna, and then Krishna reminds you of everything. So this is the way of our thought process and spiritual consciousness and material consciousness. We are kind of mixed. There's a strong, not this lifetime, Mataji, countless lifetimes we have been in this material consciousness. It has tied us up completely, fully tied us up, choking us. And when we do these spiritual activities, slowly by slowly, with the sword of knowledge, it is cutting those ropes which have tied us. The practice that we do is sharpening that sword. You look at it, you sharpen a sword on the grind wheel, correct? It goes around that wheel and uska dhar lagta hai. This is the sadhana that we are doing, that reading, deity worship, bhoga offering, all the spiritual practices that we do. Who's the person turning the wheel? The Vaishnav Sangha, the gurus. So this is how our spiritual consciousness awakens, our spiritual senses awaken, and the material senses diminish. And the more we engage in these activities, the more and more that sword is getting sharper. Is that good, Mataji? Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, awesome. Very, very, very nicely
All glories to Prabhupada. All
Very-
glories to Prabhupada.
Yeah, that clears all my doubts. Very, very nicely explained, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for clarifying
I'm
that.
happy
Thank
it was useful for you, Mataji. I've
Thank you.
just been fortunate. I'm only repeating whatever I've heard through all these lectures, and that's what it does. Sangha, Mataji. Sangha is so important. When they say that the person who asks the question, it benefits him and her, the person who gives the reply, and everyone else listening. So a question, you had started off with, I hope it's not a silly question. There's no, when it comes to Krishna, there's no silly question. This happens because in our mind we think, am I asking the right question? Will I look stupid? Am I being dumb? What will others think and say? This is natural. And especially it happens in meetings when your boss and everyone, big people are sitting around. We keep quiet. And then someone else will ask the question and the boss will appreciate it. And you say, I should have asked this question. So no question is a silly or a stupid question when it comes in context to Krishna, as long as it is in a mood of humility, wanting to know. Knowledge is meant for the betterment of ourselves and for the betterment of others. Just frivolous question. One person asked Prabhupada, is there something, can Krishna make a mountain which is so heavy that he cannot lift it? A trick question, you get it? If Krishna can make the mountain, which proves he is the God, that there's no limitation on him, but it is so heavy he can't lift it, means he has a limitation, therefore he's not God. So damned if you do, damned if you don't, both ways. So it was a trick question which this person asked. Prabhupada told him, yes, Krishna can make a mountain which is so heavy that he can't lift it. But immediately the next moment, his energy is always expanding. There's no limitation on Krishna. He'll be able to lift it. The point being that if you get some knowledge of what use is it to you, it should be of some use to you. There's just useless information cluttering your head. We are armchair philosophers, talking big. God may give us oratory skills, we'll talk big. And you see that in today's world. There are so many gurus who have come. So many. Bada baat karega wo. But guru is someone who's achar, prachar, vichar. And only a devotee can answer all the questions. I'm not a devotee, Mataji. All that I'm speaking is what I heard. I'm just the medium. Loudspeaker bolte na. From loudspeaker it is coming. This is from all these Vaishnavas, Simheshwar, Madhupati, Prabhus. So many over the journey. And that remains in, and then you share it. So today it has helped you. Tomorrow you'll go and help others. Krishna consciousness bhakti is for sharing. It is not individual. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nicely. That's
To Prabhupada.
fullness that you have just given credit to, but beautifully explained. I don't think I've seen this kind of explanation. Like, I've been looking for this answer for a long time, but finally, you explained it so nicely. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you. Okay, oh, wow. Half an hour over. I'm so sorry. My explanations are really long. Okay, Simeshwar Prabhu, over to you.
Please conclude.
Lovely. There is Kirtan going on. Kirtan. Lovely. Okay, Simeshwar Prabhu. So,
Yeah, please conclude.
can we conclude? Thank
Yes,
you,
yes,
everybody.
yes.
We'll conclude by offering our obeisances to all the Vaishnav, Vanchakalpa, Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namo.
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavanta ki jai.
Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai.
ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.